Global business consultant Hilary Fordwich and former Trump senior economic advisor Stephen Moore. All right, Hilary, I look at this and I say, these are all like funny money numbers, but what people aren't talking about, Joe Biden selling it all day long is good, that people have stopped paying their bills.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Pleasure to be back with you, Carl, and with Stephen. It is actually shocking that this holiday season of 23, 1/3 of Americans actually still had credit card debt from the previous year, 2022. So 1/3 of Americans, 61% of Americans have some form of debt on their credit cards. So this means you're right. You're totally and utterly right that people have a debt problem. And what this does, it means that moving forward, as we're seeing these cuts, we've already seen media cuts, we've already seen high job tech cuts, there won't be anybody left who can pay their credit card bills, because that 2/3 right there may be the ones also losing their jobs, because they're the ones that don't have an emergency fund.
But Stephen, we see this all the time. Biden comes to the podium and he says, hey, look, everything's good, but it's not.
Yeah, look, here's what's happening is that for the last 3 years, like 22 of the last 28 months, inflation has been higher than people's incomes. So people have had to borrow to maintain their living standards. And guess what? We have had a couple of months where wages are catching up, but they still haven't. So people are underwater. So what are people doing to maintain to buy the same foods, to be able to maintain their living standards? They have to borrow. So this is the first time in history of the country that we have $1 trillion of credit card debt. That's not as troubling, though, as what you were talking about, the delinquency rate, that people aren't paying it. Because the worst way to borrow is to not pay your credit card debt, because you're going to pay 20, 25, 30% interest rates on that.
But not to mention, that's how 2008 housing crisis started, was people not paying. And then,
by the way, can I just make one other point?
Yeah.
You mentioned the fact that the student loans and the fact that, we had the student loan bailouts.
Sure.
I honestly believe these people in Washington are so crazy. You saw there was a governor who was saying he was going to relieve medical debt. Did you see this in Connecticut?
It's my own governor.
I think a lot of Americans think government's going to come here and just pay off my debt. And why wouldn't they? You got a crazy man in the White House that you don't have to pay your student loan debt. You don't have to pay your medical debt. I mean,
it's all foolish. It's like not even real to them. But Hillary, Biden, okay, no surprise here. It's like they think we're stupid or something. He can tell us it's good, but he's trailing Trump by 20 points on the handling of the economy, and still he continues to lie to. I mean, like, is he just digging a hole?
Well, yes, and actually the irony of it is the reason that he used Bidenomics was because Reaganomics, that term worked really well. And the Wall Street Journal, of course, meant it in a derogatory manner when they actually published it, but the Biden team and Biden took it on. What they forgot to think about was the fact that Reaganomics worked with the American public because the economy was booming after that Reagan recession. And that's what you're talking about, is that the American public can't be fooled. When people are buying their groceries, when they look at the price of eggs, they look at the price of food up, they know what it is. Now, the one thing that does scare me, Carl, I think I've mentioned this with you before, even though the price of gas is down, that's what Americans are seeing at the pump. It is only because the Biden administration released the oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And it's called strategic because it's supposed to be a defense for our nation. That is very scary layered on top of this.
And, the fact is we are actually producing more oil now than we were a year ago, but it's from a less number of wells that are starting to run dry. Hilary Fordwich, Stephen Moore, got to leave it right there.
Thank you.
Thank you.